Good afternoon, assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to a brand new video. As you can see, this is not usually where I record my videos because we're doing something a little bit different. With 2024 having ended, I figured that there'd be loads of drivers out there looking to buy some new karting gear, which is what all of this stuff is. So we're going to go through pretty much every single bit of gear that you can purchase and whether it's right for you. And I think this is going to be especially useful for drivers who are just getting into karting and they don't really know what they should buy and what is useful for them. We're going to be rating every single item on this list in three categories. First, and most importantly, does it make you go faster? Secondly, does it improve your safety? On second thoughts, that should probably be the most important thing. But then again, we're racing drivers, so who cares about safety? And thirdly, is it affordable? The more expensive something is, well, the worse it is for affordability. With that said, before we jump into this, you're probably wondering, why do I have a hat on when I'm inside the house? Well, I'm just here to brag. I've got a cool hat. And now that I've shown off my cool Milky's Hero hat, we can throw that away. We don't need it anymore. Make sure to go and buy one. It's pretty cool. Also, all of these items that we're going to show, or a lot of the items anyway, where do you buy them from? Well, I'm going to be mentioning a few places where you can buy stuff from, but when it comes to karting gear, I have always gone to MK Racewear. And the main reason why I'm mentioning them is because they're giving all viewers of this video a cool 10% off from any product you want to buy from their website. And now that I say that, that's pretty cool because that's essentially the first proper promo I've ever done on this channel. So if you do want to get something, head on to mkracewear.co.uk and use the code MilkyCereal. I still can't believe I'm saying that. But with that said, let's head on to the video. Oh. So the first item is of course going to be the most iconic thing, the helmet. And yeah, it's pretty cool, I've got to be honest. But is it necessary? Well, no. As much as karters want to joke about how getting a nice new lid gives you half a second a lap, it doesn't. But there are some good things that it does as well. First and foremostly, it can be more comfortable. When you go to some rental karting circuits and they give you a helmet, sometimes the strap doesn't feel quite right, the helmet doesn't feel that comfortable. So being able to get a helmet that you personally feel comfortable with can give you that extra comfort, and comfort does equal speed. So I guess I'm saying that a helmet does make you go a bit faster. The other thing as well that could technically help you go faster when you've got your own helmet is you get one of these cool iridium visors. And iridium visors, while they do, yes, obviously make you look cool, they're like sunglasses, which make you look cool, but it also stops sunlight from getting into your eyes. If the track is a bit damp or if it's just very sunny and bright, having an iridium visor can, I guess, help a little bit to again increase that comfort and keep you more focused, which can improve your consistency and maybe even help you go a little bit faster. So I guess what I'm trying to say is a helmet does make you go faster. But the main thing obviously with a helmet is the safety. And yes, rental karting circuits do provide helmets for you, but they are cheap helmets and nothing beats a good old-fashioned Bell, Arai, or I guess I should mention the other ones like I think it's Stilo and now Zamp helmets. So have a look for yourself as to what helmets are the most safe. If you do want to get your own helmet, you can usually buy one of the cheap ones like the ones that the karting circuits provide you for about 60 to 80 pounds, or you can even get a fairly cheap motorcycle helmet for maybe 40 to 50 quid. But if you want a proper karting helmet like this, it's going to set you back by about 400 to 500 pounds. Closer to 500 pounds if you're getting an iridium visor with it. If you're just getting a clear visor, maybe 400 pounds. And the thing that you have to be aware of as well is sometimes accidents like this happen and you will cry yourself to sleep. What was I rating these videos in? It was, does it make you go faster? How expensive is it? And how safe does it go? Okay. So overall, with the karting helmet, let's rate it out of 5 in each category. In terms of safety, this is a 5 out of 5. There is nothing more important when you're out on circuit than this helmet. It does everything for you. The amount of times I've been out on circuit and little stones have been flicked up into the air and hit my visor, and I thought, if I didn't have a visor, that stone would have gone in my eye and maybe I'd be blind. I'm a bit overdramatic, but you get the idea. 5 out of 5 for safety. Speed, I'll give it a 1 out of 5 because yes, it can help you improve maybe your consistency with the iridium visor, but I think I'm just trying to justify the amount of money I spent on this. And what was the final one? Affordability. To be honest, I think affordability, we've got to put it at 0 out of 5. It is probably the most expensive, and I don't want to say useless, but it is useless because karting circuits give you helmets and you don't really need anything much safer than what the karting circuit gives you. So as a result, affordability, 0. It's the most expensive piece of kit here really, and for what it does, you don't really need it. So affordability has to be at 0. Our second item on the list are racing gloves. Now, when you go to most rental karting circuits, they do give you some rental gloves, but they're awful. They're either builder's gloves or really crappy mechanics gloves. You do need to get yourselves a pair of gloves. And I'm going to try to stay as objective as I can in this video and allow you guys to make your own decision. But I will give recommendations. And I do think this is super, super important. When I started karting, when I started karting for the second time, which is when I got to university, I was using rental gloves. And eventually I bought these. These bad boys I have had since 2016. That's quite a few years ago. Some of you might not have even been born then. And to be fair, they work quite well. These are the OMP wet weather karting gloves. Because I live in the UK, it rains a lot, and wet weather karting gloves are really, really useful. I never realised how useful they were until I got these. They keep your hands a lot drier than they would be if you had a pair of summer gloves. And comfort is key. The more comfortable you are, the warmer your hands are. Anyone who's gone karting in the wet and your hands have got soaked, you're freezing cold because there's a bitter wind, you just start feeling cold, you don't drive properly, and you start to make more mistakes. So these do literally make you go faster. However, I was once sitting on a very, very hot day with these gloves on in the middle of July, and I realised they're too bloody hot. So I then bought some of these. These are the Sparco Arrow K gloves. A few people sometimes message me and ask, Milky, where do you get these purple gloves from? Well, MK Racewear, but they're blue. These are just really, really discoloured. They used to be about the same colour as my hoodie before, but they've just discoloured from sunlight, and I've had these since about 2021. So, and I've done a good 20 races a year, and there is still, I mean, if I hold it up to the camera, there is practically no wear whatsoever on these, which is why I'm going to give my second recommendation. Get Sparco. There's loads of great brands out there, from OMP to Alpine Stars, Sparco. You can even get Puma and Adidas karting gear. I have never had issues with Sparco. I've got Sparco gloves, I've got Sparco racing boots. Sparco just seems to work for me anyway, and it seems to be really, really durable. It has a great lasting life, and I would personally never touch anything else because I'm scared that things are going to break. And I know people who have other brands of karting gloves and stuff, and they get holes in it, and I don't know what they're doing, whether they're stabbing their gloves or if they're just not as good. But personally, from me, I would always say to get these. But back to my story. I have been using these for a while, and then one race I thought, oh, it's going to be cold, I'll put these back on. And it was the first time I used these in a long time. And what I found was that they weren't very good. I mean, they worked for me when I was younger, but because it wasn't wet, these didn't really work. And I found that I had to grip the steering wheel a lot tighter. Whereas these have, well, it's a little bit worn out now, but these have like little sticky gel pads, and it just helps you grip the steering wheel a bit better. Because I couldn't grip the steering wheel well, I had to hold the steering wheel really tight, and my hands were absolutely dead after just a few laps, and I drove awfully. Yes, it's an excuse, but it is true. If you can find yourselves a good pair of racing gloves that, number one, fit you, number two, are comfortable, you will get quicker. And it's crazy because it's just a tiny little bit of comfort. Because you've got to put slightly less effort in the wheel, you're not forcing the cart around as much as you otherwise would be. And I personally think that these do make you go faster. Another little tip when you are buying these as well is there's loads of different types of gloves that you can get. You want to get gloves that have these outside stitches. You don't want to get internal stitches. The reason for this is it just means your hand on the inside is more comfortable. It's not about the gloves looking good. So the outside stitches help to keep your fingers comfortable, and it means that you've just got a better feel on the racing wheel. These gloves will usually set you back by somewhere between 15 if you're getting the really cheap gloves, so about £15 to about 60, £70, depending on how high you want to go. These gloves have done me years and years of service, and they've only been about 45 quid. So yeah, I cannot complain when it comes to value for money with these. So let's rate our racing gloves in our three categories. For safety, they don't really do much for safety. Most rental places give you karting gloves. If they don't, then yes, they do help a little bit for safety, but not really too much. So safety, I'm only going to give him a 2 out of 10. When it comes to pace though, they definitely do help. Not by a huge amount. You won't see yourself suddenly becoming Max Verstappen, but they do definitely make a difference. So I'm going to give these a 3 out of 10 for pace. Finally, for affordability. To be honest, there isn't that much that you can get that are cheaper than these, but I do understand that not everyone has tens and tens of pounds lying around, especially if you're racing in indoor karting series where you're only spending about £20 for a race session. So I do understand that not everyone can just buy whatever they want, but if you are racing, I do advise getting some summer gloves, and if you do outdoor karting in the UK as well, grab yourself some winter gloves. Affordability, a 4 out of 5. Let's move on to our, I think it's third item, which are racing boots. Now, I've had these since about 2021. Again, Sparco. I always get Sparco. And yeah, they're still in very good nick. You can even throw them in the washing machine. And yeah, they've got some scuffs here and there. I think there's a little bit of something ripping off somewhere, but I can't seem to find it now. They keep my feet warm, and they're actually even a little bit water resistant. Again, if you're racing in the UK, get yourself, and you want to get some racing boots, I definitely recommend also thinking about getting some wet weather racing boots, even if you want just your standard trainers when it's dry and sunny. Because if you've got wet weather racing boots, it keeps your feet dry, and if you've never been out when it's wet, when your feet get wet, your toes freeze, and it is horrible. Staying dry in a car is an absolute must. There's not much to talk about these, so let's quickly rate them. In terms of safety, well, nothing. These probably do even less for you than the gloves because you've got your own standard shoes, and well, shoes are probably more safe than these are because your shoes are quite thick and durable. These are, I guess, what do you call it, abrasion resistant. So if you kind of get thrown out of your car and your feet are sliding across, maybe these will help, but I don't really think that they do much in terms of safety. So safety is a 1 out of 10. In terms of affordability though, they aren't as cheap as gloves. They tend to range from about 40 to 80, 90 pounds. If I remember correctly, it's been a while since I was on the market looking for these. So affordability, I'm only going to be able to give it a 3 out of 10. Finally, do these make you go faster? Weirdly, yes. The reason for this is the soles of these shoes are very, very thin. This means that your foot gets as close as possible to the throttle pedal, and you can feel the throttle and the brake a bit better. If you're going out in trainers and you've got really thick soles, it's a little bit harder just to find the sweet point and modulate the throttle as well as you otherwise could. However, if you've got thin sole shoes, then they pretty much do the same thing, although these are still slightly better. So I don't think these are quite as essential for speed as gloves are, so as a result, I'm only going to give these a 2 out of 5. I'm pretty sure I gave the gloves a 3, but these are a 2. Moving on to the next item on the list, this thing. This, if you don't know, is what we call a rib protector. And I do think this is a very, very useful piece of kit. Not many people who are just getting into rental karting are aware of this. But a rib protector goes on the inside of your suit. Some people even put it on the outside, depending on how snug they are in their suit. And what it does is it just cushions impact. So if you get thrown about in your car, you feel it less. If you have a big incident, you feel it less. I remember when I was about 8, 9 years old, I had a massive, massive shunt in a karting accident, and I actually couldn't breathe after the incident. I was just completely out of breath, winded and everything. And I remember just thinking at the time, as an 8-year-old, I'm glad I had a rib protector. And it wasn't a great rib protector, but at the time, my 8-year-old self thought I would have died if I didn't have a rib protector. Now, obviously I wouldn't have died, but it does help. People get cracked ribs in karting, they get bruised ribs. A rib protector is really, really useful. Even if you're snug in your car, I can't recommend a rib protector enough. This is your safety at the end of the day. In terms of speed, it doesn't really give you much, but the comfort that it gives you is next to none. I'm quite a skinny guy, so when I go into rental carts, I move about a lot because I'm just not snug. I can't use a seat packer or a seat insert because it brings me too close to the pedals, and as a result, I lean. Everyone has to lean in karting, and having this rib protector means that I can throw myself around, lean on the edge of the seat, and it doesn't hurt my ribs at all. I've done long 24-hour races where I've done 4 or 5 hour stints, and I don't feel anything on my ribs because of this. Whereas other people sometimes even have like little cuts, bruises, they're bleeding from the sides of their bodies, and I know I'm not exaggerating. This is really good for safety. So with that said, let's rate this. Safety, 4 out of 5. It's not as essential as a helmet, it's not going to save your life, but it's one of those things where paper cuts really hurt. This stops the little things. This stops your paper cuts in karting. In terms of pace, we'll give it a 2 out of 10. I think it's as useful as racing boots. It's more useful than a helmet because you've got the comfort to be able to lean onto the side of the car and you can really throw yourself around a lot more. So I do think it does help you go faster. Not a lot. Again, don't think you're going to get much quicker, but I think the comfort that it gives does help you to go faster. Finally, affordability. Weirdly, these aren't actually that cheap. They do cost a fair bit of money. I think I got this for about £30. I have no idea how, but if you want to get a new one, it actually tends to cost about 100 quid. And I don't know, I just can't justify giving it a low ranking on the affordability because of, well, how small this is. And now that I say that, I've actually forgotten which way my affordability scale is going. So I'm pretty sure 1 is bad and 5 is good. Either way, I've probably changed my affordability scale. This is why it helps to have notes and plan out a video. But affordability, I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5. It's not that affordable. If you've got 100 quid, there's probably better things that you can put that money towards. And we're going to go over some of those things now. Okay, I lied. We're not going to the cool stuff just yet. There are 2 more boring things to go over. First off, balaclavas. Balaclavas are, let's be honest, pretty much next to useless, but you can buy your own. And if you go to some rental karting circuits, they make you buy a balaclava, they make you buy their balaclava or rent a balaclava anyway, so you might as well just buy your own. These are 3 separate balaclavas. These 2 are from rental circuits, and this is one that I bought myself. So, let's try them on and look like an absolute bandito. This first balaclava is actually from Belgium. Now, the issue when you buy balaclavas from the karting circuit or you get given a balaclava is they're not always comfortable. They might not even be your size. They tend to be one size fits all, which means that they can either be way too big for you or way too small. Personally, I find this one too small, and I can actually feel the blood pressure in my head starting to build up from wearing it. Also, the other thing to mention with this is the fabric, the stitching is on the inside. So I don't know if you can see here, but the stitches are on the inside of the balaclava. This means that I can feel the balaclava. I've actually had one balaclava where there's a stitch right on the top at the apex of the head. And when I put my helmet on, that actually digs into my forehead and it's really uncomfortable. This is another one. This is the one that I always used to use for karting, which I got from Daytona, Milton Keynes. And this is one that's a bit too big. But I prefer it a bit too big than small, so I can use this, I can put my helmet on. It tends to move around when I put my helmet on, but it tends to be roughly in the right position. And then this final one is, yes, you guessed it, a Sparko balaclava that I got from MK Racewear. And when I got the actual balaclava, it was really weird because it's tight, but it doesn't feel tight. So it's a little bit like this in terms of how tight it is. But I don't know if it's because of the material or something else, but it feels loose. It feels comfortable. And it's also a little bit longer down here, which means it tucks down quite nicely into my race suit. And because it tucks into my race suit, that means when I'm driving, I don't feel wind on my neck. I've driven a few times without a balaclava, and it feels really weird to have an exposed neck and feel the wind hitting it. And I just really don't like it. It makes me a bit paranoid. It also really helps because if you've got your own helmet, it keeps your helmet clean, and it means you don't have to wash your helmet. You just have to wash the balaclava. So I do recommend buying your own balaclava at some point, especially if you've got your own helmet. If you don't have your own helmet, you don't really need to, but you'll probably end up spending a few pounds at karting circuits anyway, so you might as well spend the 10 quid to get a nice balaclava. So let's rate our balaclava. In terms of affordability, 5 out of 5. It's super affordable. You can get some for about 5 quid. This one that I got was about 10 to 12 quid. It's the cheapest karting gear that you're ever going to get. In terms of safety, absolutely nothing. It doesn't really help you at all. It's not going to help. So it's a 0 out of 5 in terms of safety. And in terms of speed, again, it's not going to give you any speed. Maybe it makes you feel a little bit more comfortable, but comfortable I think is subjective. Some people hate wearing balaclavas. Other people really like them. So we've got to give this a 0 out of 5 as well for speed. The final piece of kit that I want to show is this. I've got it in a bag because I can't be bothered to take it out. But this is a wetsuit. Now, wetsuits are a subjective thing. Well, they're not subjective things. You need a wetsuit. But if you're only doing indoor karting, you don't need it. It's not going to race unless the team sport ceiling is going to break and water is going to come in and fall on you. But then I think the ceiling falling on you is a bigger issue. However, UK karting, it rains. And racing when you're wet and soaking is horrible. Wetsuits help keep you nice and warm. Well, maybe not warm, but dry. And that means that you can drive at your limit a lot easier. So they do help you go faster. I could not drive anywhere near as quick in the wet if I didn't have my wetsuit on. I would just feel horrible and I would probably want to You also have to be careful to make sure you get a good wetsuit. Loads of wetsuits do leak. There's a type of wetsuit that they call the condom suit because it's see-through and I guess it looks like a condom. I don't know. This is more of a bike wetsuit, which I think does the job a little bit better. I think it only costs about 40, 50 quid. My previous one was secondhand. It was only about 20 quid. So speed, 3 out of 5. Affordability, we're also going to give it a 3 out of 5 as well. And in terms of safety, nothing. 0 out of 5 for safety because, well, it doesn't make you any safer than otherwise. With that said, let's move on to the nitty-gritty. These are cameras. Now, if you're a YouTuber or you want to put your videos out onto YouTube, they're very useful. But let's be honest, you only want to watch my YouTube videos. You don't want to make YouTube videos yourself. So why are they useful? Why have I included them? These are probably the best way to improve as a racing driver. By having one of these on, you can look back at your footage and not only will you be able to tell when you're driving well, when you're driving badly, what racing lines you should be taking, but you can also improve your situational awareness. Whenever I finish a race and I go back and I look at my footage to make a YouTube video, I look through the footage a couple of times first and I analyze all my races and I think, what could I have done better in each of those races? Was there a battle where maybe I shouldn't have gone for an overtake and I should have worked with the driver, or I shouldn't have defended, or there was an incident that maybe I could have better avoided? Without a GoPro, you have no way of looking over that. So this is super, super useful to be able to look back at your footage and figure out how to improve as a racing driver. Now, I've got 3 different types of GoPros or 3 different types of cameras here. Number 1 is a GoPro. This is what I tend to use in my footage. This one is not actually the one I use for my footage, but this is in a nice waterproof case, which is what I'd recommend you guys to get. I don't like using the waterproof case because it ruins the sound quality and I think that detracts a little something from the YouTube videos, but it doesn't affect the video quality. And if you want to improve as a driver, all you're really interested in is the video. Yes, the audio does help, but having slightly lower audio quality won't impact your ability to learn from the footage. Next, we've got one of the knockoff cameras. These are the cameras that you see advert for saying as good as a GoPro or better than a GoPro, but let's be honest, it's not. Finally, we've got this. This is a cam box. This is the V4 Pro that I got last year at some point, and this goes on the inside of your helmet. Now, there's quite a few positives and negatives with each one. The GoPro is the most expensive, but it's the best video quality footage. This is the cheapest, so most affordable. It only costs about £40. And, well, the video quality isn't quite that good. So why would you want to get this when you can get this? Well, first and foremostly, you don't have to put one of those ugly GoPro mounts on your helmet. Magically appeared helmet. Now, as you can see at the front of this, we've got a GoPro mount. This is where I usually mount my GoPro, and then, well, I have a slightly different attachment, and then I have the GoPro here on the front of it. Others might put the mount on the top of the helmet, some might put it on the side. If you've got a nice cool helmet design, you might not want to ruin it with a GoPro mount. Also, there are some really annoying circuits that don't allow helmet cameras. So if you've got a GoPro on the front of your helmet or an action camera on the front of your helmet, it's really obvious that you're breaking the rules. If you've got this and an iridium visor, no one can see it. So you can use your camera regardless. Also, it's a little bit closer to your driver's perspective, so it does help a little bit for that. I can also use it as well sometimes for test days on car racing circuits because they don't allow GoPros, but they can be a bit lenient with this, and if they don't allow it, they don't know you're wearing it. Not that I'd ever do that, no. Also, while we're talking about this should be another thing to mention. If you do want to buy yourself a GoPro, you then need to buy a helmet, because without the helmet, you can't attach your GoPro. Yes, some karts do have GoPro mounts on them, but you can't see your steering inputs. So it will help you to improve, but if you've got your driver's perspective by having your GoPro on the helmet, it will help you improve even more. As a result, we've got to go back to our helmet footage or our helmet rating, and we can no longer rate this beautiful thing a measly 1 out of 5 for performance. Instead, this has now gone up to a 4 out of 5. Actually, no, 3 out of 5, not 4. Sorry, helmet, you're staying at 3. But it does make sense. So let's quickly rate these. First of all, if you do want to get a camera, the prices vary completely, from paying about £30–40 for a cheap action camera to paying about £300–400 for a cam box, to paying up to probably almost £700–800 for a GoPro, depending on what type of GoPro you want to buy brand new. So it's quite hard to be able to say what the affordability is, but considering you can get a cheap action cam, which will allow you to see your footage, which is what you really need, we're going to put this down as fairly affordable. And I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5 because more affordable, more stars. You can use this for other stuff. For example, you can use it if you're riding your bike through the forest. You can use this if you want to... I was going to say you could use this to peep on the girl next door. What is wrong with me? Don't do that. It's really, really versatile, and it doesn't just have to be used for karting. So I think 4 out of 5 is a fair thing for affordability. But in terms of driving, does it help you go faster? Absolutely. And we're going to give this a 4 out of 5. Why not a 5? Well, there's something else that's a little bit quicker. But before we can go to that, we have to give it a safety rating. Now, as you all know, Michael Schumacher put himself in a coma because of one of these bad boys on his helmet. So I can't really say that it's safe, but to be honest, it is. You're in a go-kart, nothing's really going to happen if you've got one of these on. The worst thing that happens is it falls off and it gets damaged. You will be fine. But there is, of course, a tiny, tiny risk. So safety, we'll say that it is we said 0 out of 5 does nothing. So this technically makes you a little bit less safe. So we'll put -1 out of 5. Our penultimate item on the list are dataloggers. When I started karting, this Micron 4 was all the rage. My family didn't spend a lot of money into karting, but I was still very fortunate to be able to go karting. And this was one of the few things that we actually did spend some money towards. And it was all the rage. I remember when we had this, loads of other drivers had the Alfano, and this was way cooler. We looked like proper cool kids. I can't think of a metaphor to explain it, but it was like the flared trousers look. Was that ever a look? Who knows? However, since this has come out, there have been much better versions of dataloggers, for example, such as the Alfano 6, which is what I currently use in BPEC with my team. But there's still something cool about a Micron, and for anyone who actually races on iRacing and you race in, I think it's a Formula 1600 or Formula Vs, there is actually a Micron attached to the steering wheel in the Formula V. It's a Micron 4S or Micron 5, but it's still pretty cool to see a Micron, and I think I used to have one of those when I was karting when I was younger. However, the issue with these is while you can use it in owner karting, you can't use it in rental karting, because the way it works is you've got to take this screw off on the back, and I realise I probably should have unscrewed it beforehand. You take your steering wheel, you put it on the steering wheel, and then you tighten it up. And then you can drive around with an Alfano on your steering wheel and look at the data as you drive. It's very cool and incredibly useful. But you can't use it when rental karting, or can you? If you're really, really polite and you ask pretty please with a cherry on top, you can go to a rental karting circuit and you can go with one of your dataloggers and you can say, "Excuse me, mate, can I just put this on the steering wheel so I can look at my lap times?" And if they're nice, they might allow you to. You just have to go with a 10mm spanner, or you can ask them for a 10mm spanner, attach it to the steering wheel, and away you go. Now, you might not be allowed to do that for some sprint races when they've got a quick turnaround, but if you're just going for a half-an-hour practice session, they probably will say yes. And this is where it's important to know what kind of data logger to get if you want to do this. You don't want to get a Micron 4, because while the Micron 4 is cool, it requires leads, and you need to take a lead and you need to attach it to the kart, which is where it will log your lap times. What you need is you need to get a wireless GPS data logger, like the Alfano 6, or I think even the Micron 5 does it as well. This is wireless, so you just plug it on, make sure it's charged, plug it on, and away you go. And at the end of your session, you will have all of your data here. You have so much data from your lap times, to how much time you've gained through the corner, your entry speed, your exit speed, your mid-corner speed for every single corner. You can follow your little lines around, you can see your racing lines through this, and you can figure out, oh, this racing line gained me a couple of tenths, or this racing line meant that I went into the corner a little bit quicker. You can compare all of your lap times. You can be a complete and utter nerd with this. And if your racing friends want to call you a nerd for looking at all of this data, the best way to answer them is by using that data, going half a second a lap quicker, and kicking their asses. There is one final type of data logger that I want to mention, and that is the Racebox Pro. Now, I don't have a Racebox Pro, but I have heard from people who do that it is absolutely fantastic. And it's actually cheaper than the Alfano as well. So what is a Racebox Pro? It's this little device that you can put into your pocket, and when you go around out on circuit, it will do pretty much everything that the Alfano does, give you all of that data, and then you can go back and look through your data just like you would with the Alfano or with any other GPS data logger. So if a karting circuit won't let you put this on, you just slide the Racebox Pro into your pocket. You don't have to tell them that you've got it. Put it in your pocket, make sure it's secure, and away you go. And at the end, you'll have so much data to be able to look through, and data is key. So let's rate our data loggers so that you can decide whether you want to buy one. In terms of safety, absolutely nothing. It's not going to affect your safety at all. It's bolted firmly onto the steering wheel. It's not going to come off. The Racebox Pro is in your pocket. Maybe if there's an accident, you can get a bruise. That's about the worst. So I'm going to actually give this a 0 out of 5 for safety because it doesn't make it worse and it doesn't make it better. Maybe that should be a 3 out of 5. I don't know. Secondly is affordability. Now, if you want to get one of these, like an Alfano 6, it costs, I think it's about 500, 400 pounds. I actually don't know. They're not cheap, but they are useful. I did have a look at the Racebox Pro though, and it's only about between 100 to 200 pounds, so it's fairly affordable. And when you think about how much information you get from one of these, it is second to none. It is so useful. So if you check with your rental karting circuit beforehand or wherever you race as to whether you can attach one of these to their wheels when you're going out to practice, even if you can't use it during a race, you can attach it in a practice session and you can get all of your information in that practice session. So affordability, I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5 because I think for what it gives you, it is super affordable and so useful. It is the single most important thing that will help you get fast, and nothing else in life will help you get as fast. The GoPros will help you, and if you've got a GoPro, you can even sync the GoPro footage up to your data and then analyze your footage in more detail. But this on its own is even better than the GoPro on its own because you can actually see top down your racing lines and figure out what you are doing. But this with a GoPro is like 6 out of 5. For speed though, this has to be a 5 out of 5. Oops. So that's it. That's the end of the video. But it's not. We haven't talked about the racing suit. Now, racing suits are really cool. If you get your own racing suit, you can get your own Milky Cereal logo on your suit. Don't take my logo. As much as I'd like you to promote my brand, if people see my logo on your suit, they might think that you're me, and then they'll think that I'm a bad driver. So don't do it. Racing suits though are really useful, and if you live in Europe, you're an absolute nutcase. Why do I say that? Well, because rental karting circuits that aren't in the UK, including the USA, they do this weird thing as well. They don't make you wear racing suits. These are really useful. The amount of time I've seen videos where either someone's come out of a kart or someone else's car has lifted off their ground and the tyres have actually rubbed on someone's arm is ridiculous. Having a racing suit, these are abrasion resistant. So if you get thrown out of your kart, you'll be fine. If you have something crazy happen, you'll be fine. If you're racing in a t-shirt and a stone comes up and hits you, it's going to sting a bit. Okay, it's not going to kill you. But just like sex, wear some protection for God's sake. Even if you go into a barrier, if you're not wearing a racing suit, you hit those barriers full on, those tires are going to scratch, maybe they'll pull some skin off. If you're wearing a racing suit, you'll be fine 9 times out of 10, as opposed to 0 times out of 10. It is worth wearing it. I remember one time when I went to Belgium to go karting, they looked at me like I was a monster for suggesting to wear their race suit. They had some race suits that you could borrow, and they were like, why would you wear it? It's summer. You'll sweat. So? Don't be like those nutters on motorbikes who ride around at whatever godforsaken speeds without a suit on. You're going to get yourself, well, maybe not killed, but you're going to get yourself hurt. Now, you can buy a racing suit secondhand for probably about 40 quid. You can actually buy one brand new, a nice cheap one, for about 70 to 80 pounds. So it is well worth the investment. I had to get a custom race suit, not because I actually wanted to get my logo and stuff on, but because I'm really tall and skinny. So if I got a standard suit that wasn't custom made, it would be really baggy for me, or it'd be way too short. That's why I got a custom suit. But you guys, if you're a normal build and not a skinny little shit like me, you can just get a normal suit for 70 to 80 pounds. In terms of affordability, it's not the cheapest thing out there. There are other things that I would probably buy first. For example, the Datalogger, but it is not expensive and it does keep you safe. So in terms of affordability, I'm also going to give it a 3 out of 5. In terms of safety though, I've got to give 2 ratings. If you live in the UK, you get given a racing suit anyway, and then this suit doesn't really help that much. The suits that you can borrow in the UK are more than safe enough, and therefore this is, well, a 0 out of 5. However, if you're not in the UK and you live in places where they don't give you a racing suit, this becomes a 3 out of 5 because it does help and you need to wear one. So get a suit if you live in a place where they don't give you one. Finally, will a racing suit help you go faster? No. Even if you put your own name onto the front of the suit with a nice flag to make you feel like Lewis Hamilton, it won't make you go faster. It could give you a slightly better fit and make you feel a little bit more comfortable, but to be honest, it's not going to do anything. So I've got to give this a 0 out of 5 for speed. Well, that's everything for this video. I don't know how long this is going to turn out to be, but if you made it to the end, congratulations, and I hope you found some useful information about what karting equipment you can buy for your racing career that can help you go faster. And if I forgot about anything, let me know down in the comments so I can not change my video and completely ignore you. But thank you guys very much for watching this. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And don't forget, if you want to buy any karting gear whatsoever, you can use the code MilkyCereal at mkracewear.co.uk for a nice juicy 10% off. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Assalamu alaikum.